For a closer look at Biden's first Middle East trip as president, I'm joined by journalist and political analyst Negar Mortazavi. Negar, so much to talk about here. Let me begin with Iran. As you know, the fate of JCPOA, the landmark nuclear deal, is up in the air. President Biden says the U.S. will not wait forever for Iran, even though it was the U.S. that unilaterally abandoned the agreement. When he was asked whether U.S. would consider using force, he said that will be the last resort. So my question to you is, has anything really changed here in terms of the U.S. position on Iran from the past administration?
Well, Asieh, that's a great point. We know that it was former President Trump, the Trump administration, who pulled out of the JCPOA. And let's not forget, the JCPOA was the landmark foreign policy achievement of the Obama-Biden administration. He pulled out of the deal, and he was to blame for sort of the post-deal situation. But now it's over a year, a year and a half of the Biden administration and his presidency. So the blame is no longer only on the Trump administration, because this is sort of a continuation of that policy. Yes, the Iranian side is also to blame, but we knew that there was a presidential election in Iran in June, and that it was the end of the term of a moderate president. There was a very high chance that a more hardline and hawkish conservative administration would come and complicate diplomacy but for the two sides. But I think the Biden administration, going back to your question, missed a golden window of opportunity at the beginning of their term, and now it's just a continuation of that. And as we get closer to the midterm elections here in the U.S., diplomacy with Iran is just going to be even more difficult. And do you believe U.S. and Israel are on the same page when it comes to how to deal with Iran and this issue of nuclear agreement? The Biden administration seems to believe diplomacy perhaps still has a chance, and the Israelis were a little bit more hawkish with their stance. Well, that's another important or key factor where we thought, or the Biden administration was trying to stand out as far as the previous administration's policy, bringing the Israeli side in for cooperation and also for consultations on their diplomacy with Iran, but not really succeeding in bringing them on board as far as supporting diplomacy and a potential deal with Iran. So I don't think they're on the same page as far as diplomacy goes, despite the administration's attempts. We're sort of seeing a replay of the Obama era before the deal was reached, of how the Israeli side was not really on board with the U.S. side. But then when it comes to conflict also, I don't think they're exactly on the same page, because I don't think the Israeli side wants to start a war with Iran. I don't think the U.S. side necessarily, there is no public support for another war in the Middle East on the American side. So it's just a weird situation that what exactly does this use of force look like if it's not a full-on war and a military conflict in the region, which the administration seems to be trying to avoid? Then what exactly is the strategy here? It's just not very clear if there really is a strategy, a long-term strategy. Let me move on to Saudi Arabia. President Biden, you may remember when he was campaigning, he had promised to make Saudi Arabia, a pariah on the world stage, of course, because of the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, which the CIA concluded it was ordered by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. But Biden today stopped short of saying whether he would address this very important human rights issue directly. Is this perhaps another missed opportunity here? Well, as you said, it looks like the pariah is going to get a photo op with the president, and the administration's priorities have completely shifted, if not in the opposite direction, from the campaign promise as a result of, the global shift and also Russia's attack on Ukraine. But going back to your question, yes, it was a campaign promise, and it sort of started on the administration's rhetoric, at least when it came towards Saudi Arabia, but it seems like that shift has been so quick, and the president is about to really meet the de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia. Let me also remind the audience that this trip happens in the wake of the Israeli forces killing an American Palestinian journalist, Shireen Abu Akleh, mention of whom is also not very much present in this trip. So 2 journalists, 1 Saudi, 1 American Palestinian, in a trip by the president to both of the countries who are responsible for their killing.
An important point there. Negar Mortazavi, thank you.